Chosen one. Listen closely. The stillness surrounding you is not a void, it is the sound of heaven holding its breath. You've been walking through oceanless days, when every prayer seems to echo back unanswered, and time feels like it has stopped moving. But this stillness is not God's absence, it is His setup. When nothing moves on earth, it means heaven is preparing to move everything. There are seasons when the silence grows so loud, it almost roars. You begin to question if heaven has gone quiet on you. Yet history whispers that every chosen vessel faced a pause before the promise. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before he lifted his staff before the Red Sea. David wandered caves before wearing a crown. Even Jesus endured the wilderness before miracles began to flow. You, too, stand in that sacred stillness, the moment before divine motion begins. The voice of God thunders in the book of Haggai, chapter 2, verse 6. In a little while, I will once more shake the heavens and the earth, the sea and the dry land, declares the Lord. That verse is not just a prophecy, it's a countdown. The silence you feel now is not stillness, it's suspension. Heaven has stretched time like an archer draws back a bowstring. Every delay is tension gathering for release. When God lets go, the arrow of your destiny will fly farther than you ever imagined. Let me tell you about someone who lived this truth. There was a man named Aidan, a quiet servant who worked in hidden faithfulness. Years went by with no sign of change. He prayed, fasted, wept, but heaven stayed still, until one day, everything he had sown in silence bloomed in a single moment. He received a message that shifted his entire future, a divine invitation that had been in motion all along. Hidden beneath the stillness, what looked like delay was actually design. The same is happening with you. You think nothing is moving, but beneath the soil of your life, roots are spreading deep. God does His best work underground. You are not being ignored, you are being planted. The seed never complains about darkness, it trusts the gardener, and when the shaking begins, you will break through the ground, not as a fragile sprout, but as a tree that can withstand storms. Sometimes God stills the world around you, so He can stir the world within you. The quiet you feel is the womb of transformation. You are being rewired to carry a greater anointing. Every unanswered prayer has been a hammer striking at the walls of your old self. Every silent night has been chiseling away what no longer fits your next level. You may not hear the trumpet, but heaven has already sounded it. Angels are taking position. Doors are aligning. The shaking is near, not to destroy you, but to separate what was built by flesh from what was born by faith. The things that are not rooted in Him will crumble, but what He planted in you will stand unshaken. Close your eyes for a moment. Feel that tension. That's not anxiety, it's spiritual momentum. You are standing at the hinge of history, where one small obedience can open eternal doors. The silence you despise is actually the sound of foundations being set. Heaven is building your next chapter, stone by stone. Unseen, but unstoppable. So, do not panic in the pause. Worship in the wait. The stillness you stand in now will one day become your testimony of trust. God has not forgotten you. He is gathering strength within you. You are not late. You are right on divine time. And when He moves, the same world that called you stuck will watch you soar. If your spirit feels the tremor of this truth, type 777 below. It is your prophetic sign that you are ready for heaven's next movement. And if this message stirs something deep inside you, don't just keep it like, share, and subscribe, so others standing in silence will know the shaking is near. And when it comes, everything changes. Chosen one. Do not fear the tremor that's coming. What once resisted you will yield. What once ignored you will now seek you. God is not just moving around you, He is moving through you, preparing to shake nations with your obedience. This is your confirmation. Heaven's silence was never rejection, it was preparation. The next sound you'll hear will be the sound of divine doors unlocking. Stay ready. The shaking has already begun in the spirit. You have mistaken the pause for abandonment. But heaven's stillness has always been strategy. The quiet is never empty. It is filled with whispers that only patient hearts can hear. When God seems silent, He is actually speaking through circumstances, timing, and alignment. You see a delay, but He sees development. Every great move of God begins with a pause. Before the waters parted, there was a still sea. Before the fire fell on Mount Carmel, there was a moment of complete silence as Elijah waited. Before resurrection morning, there was a sealed tomb and 3 days of stillness. Heaven's pause is not proof of God's absence, it's evidence that divine hands are working behind the veil. According to what is revealed in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the vision awaits an appointed time, though it tarry. Wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay." There is an appointed time for everything that concerns you. Heaven keeps perfect time. Even when your watch feels broken, the gap between your prayer and His response is not wasted space, it's sacred construction. God is orchestrating conversations you haven't heard, aligning people you haven't met, and arranging circumstances you couldn't predict. He is moving puzzle pieces that your human sight cannot yet connect. You are in the waiting room of heaven, not a prison, but a preparation chamber. The walls echo with silence, but that silence carries power. It teaches you patience, shapes your discernment, and tunes your spirit to recognize the subtle sound of God's movement. In this waiting, you are not being held back, you are being held together. Think of Noah. The ark was finished. The animals were gathered, and still nothing. 7 days of stillness before the first drop of rain. God could have sent the flood immediately, but He waited. Why? To seal Noah's obedience, to prove his faith could stand still when nothing happened. The same test lives in your timeline. God's pause is proving that your faith is real, even without evidence. You might feel like heaven has muted your story, but the truth is that God is setting the stage, like a play before its opening act. The lights are dimmed, the audience holds its breath, and everything appears motionless. Then, at the exact cue, the curtain lifts. That's what heaven's pause feels like, a holy anticipation before divine unveiling. Don't despise this phase. Even creation reflects it. The earth rests before new growth. Winter precedes spring. The tide pulls back before the wave crashes forward. The pause is nature's language for preparation. So when God seems far, remember, the distance you feel is the space He's clearing for your expansion. This is where hidden strength is built. When nothing moves, your roots are forced to go deeper. When no door opens, your prayer life becomes your anchor. Heaven's stillness stretches your faith beyond convenience and into conviction. You begin to trust not because of what you see, but because of who He is. There is a beauty in the pause that few recognize. It is in this space that God replaces your panic with peace, your striving with surrender. You stop trying to make things happen and start allowing God to move them instead. Heaven's pause purifies motives. It burns away impatience and pride until what remains is pure trust. Sometimes He slows the rhythm of your life so He can synchronize you with His heartbeat. You are learning to walk in step with eternity, not urgency. You are learning that divine timing is not late, it's perfect. You will look back and realize that this season was not a waste, it was a womb. The silence was forming something alive inside you. Every unanswered prayer was a contraction preparing to birth promise. Every delay was heaven saying, "Hold on. What I'm making requires more time." So, stay steady in this divine pause. The next movement of God will not just shift your situation, it will redefine your story. Heaven's silence has purpose. What looks like nothing is actually everything being rearranged for your good. Heaven's pause is like the breath before a song begins. You are standing in that sacred inhale, where creation waits for the first note of divine melody to be released. Do not rush what God is composing. The silence is His tuning process, ensuring your heart beats in rhythm with His eternal tempo before the next movement begins. Soon, sound will return swift, powerful, undeniable. When it does, you will realize the stillness was never empty. It was charged with divine electricity, waiting for heaven's command to move. You have felt the heaviness of waiting, the long nights when prayer seemed to vanish into the air, the mornings when faith felt fragile. You've watched others move forward while you stayed behind, caught in a divine pause that stretched longer than you ever imagined. Yet hear this truth: God's silence is not rejection, it's refinement. Every chosen one is tested in the wilderness of waiting. It's where God strips away every illusion of control until all that's left is pure trust. This is the sacred place where faith stops depending on outcomes and starts depending on Him. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 11. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Oh, that promise is not fragile, it's eternal. When everything around you feels uncertain, His plan remains intact. You may not see it unfolding, but heaven is writing chapters you haven't turned to yet. The author never panics over the unfinished page. There was once a man named Elias who lived through a season like yours. He prayed for change, but found himself surrounded by silence. He began to think God had forgotten his name. Yet, years later, when breakthrough finally came, Elias realized the silence had been training ground. God had been sharpening his discernment, teaching him to recognize His voice without the noise. When the door finally opened, Elias wasn't desperate, he was ready. The waiting had built his strength. Chosen one. What if this stillness is not a wall but a cocoon? What if heaven has wrapped you in quiet so transformation can take place without outside interference? Caterpillars don't move while they change. They dissolve, reform, and emerge, renewed. That's what God is doing in you, now breaking down the old so the new can be born. The weight you carry is the pressure of potential. Every sigh, every tear, every unanswered prayer It's all material in God's hands. He is molding you for greater capacity. The waiting is not just about timing, it's about transformation. There is a rhythm in divine delay that most never learn to hear. It's the sound of heaven aligning details that your eyes cannot yet comprehend. Sometimes God withholds motion to protect your direction. If He released you too soon, you'd step into a promise, unprepared to hold it. You are not being punished, you are being trusted. The fact that He allows you to wait means He sees in you the endurance to withstand the test. The pause is not proof of distance, it's evidence of destiny. Think of the mountain climber who stops halfway up the peak. It's not because the climb is over, but because strength must be restored before the final ascent. God's stillness is your rest. Stop before your rise. So, take this moment not as delay, but as dialogue. Heaven is speaking through silence. God is not ignoring you. He is instructing you. His lessons often come without words, but never without purpose. Now, take one small act of faith. Type, "Still I wait," below. This is not a phrase of resignation. It is a declaration of trust. It means you choose patience over panic, belief over bitterness. When you write it, do it as a covenant between you and God, a whisper that says, "Even when I don't see it, I'm still standing." And that phrase, "Still I wait," carries more power than you realize. It is not weakness, it is warfare. When you choose to wait, you resist the enemy's whisper that says, "God forgot you." Your waiting becomes a weapon of faith, a silent declaration that heaven's promises are worth the pause. Waiting with trust is not idle, it is active, surrender. It means you're building altars in the in-between, worshipping even when you can't yet see the way. This kind of faith shakes the unseen world, because it says, "My peace is not dependent on progress." That's what separates the chosen from the crowd. When you say, "Still I wait," you echo the endurance of those who came before you: Abraham waiting for Isaac, Hannah waiting for Samuel, Paul waiting in prison. None of them waited in vain, and neither will you. Each moment of silence builds the strength you'll need when the breakthrough arrives. Understand this: the waiting is not about God proving Himself to you, it's about Him proving you to yourself. It's about revealing how deeply rooted your trust can become when everything else is stripped away. So let patience finish its work. Keep standing, keep listening, and keep breathing in the quiet. Heaven moves at the pace of trust, and your trust is speaking louder than any prayer right now. When everything seems still, it is easy to assume that heaven has paused, that perhaps God has stepped away from your story. But while your eyes see nothing, the Spirit is weaving movement into the unseen. Every still moment carries invisible momentum. The air before a storm feels calm, not because nothing is happening, but because something powerful is gathering strength. You are standing in that kind of silence now, the charged quiet of destiny forming. What looks like inactivity is in fact divine rearrangement. You cannot see the shifting because heaven's work begins in realms your senses cannot access. God moves first in the Spirit before anything touches the natural. As the Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, the second book, chapter 4, verse 18. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. End of tree. That truth is your anchor. The unseen is not empty, it's eternal. It is where your breakthrough begins. where your story is written before it is lived. God operates in patterns of invisibility. He births outcomes in silence, then unveils them in sudden motion. You call it surprise. Heaven calls it sequence. Consider a seed buried deep in the soil, above ground. Nothing appears to change. Days pass. Rain falls. The field looks lifeless. Yet beneath, the seed is splitting, expanding, pushing through darkness toward the promise of light. The miracle starts underground. The roots are forming long before the blossom appears. God's hidden movements in your life work the same way. What you call nothing happening is, in truth, everything happening exactly as it should. Sometimes, heaven hides progress to protect it. If you could see what He is building, you might rush it, touch it, or try to fix it before it's ready. So God conceals His work until it can stand the light of day. The hidden is mercy. It keeps your miracle safe from premature exposure. This is why faith must live beyond sight. If you only trust what you can see, your faith remains fragile. But when you learn to believe in what's unseen, your faith becomes unbreakable. The unseen realm is the workshop of heaven. Angels labor there. Prayers gather weight there. Promises are refined there. You may not hear the sound of hammers, but construction is underway. In the stillness, God is setting up divine intersections. Someone across the world may be receiving the same whisper that will one day connect to your destiny. A conversation is forming. A letter is being written. An idea is being born, all in perfect timing. The pause in your visible world allows synchronization in the invisible one. Hidden movement requires hidden trust. That's why God often removes your need to understand and replaces it with the call to believe. He teaches you to rest in His rhythm, even when you can't sense His hand. The greatest faith is not born in answered prayer, but in unanswered silence. Think of Elijah on Mount Carmel. Before fire fell, there was no sign, no sound, just a prophet kneeling with his face between his knees. The people saw nothing. Elijah saw everything in his spirit. He sent his servant to look 7 times, and only on the 7th did a cloud the size of a man's hand appear. Small beginnings are heaven's favorite signals. So if you see just a trace, a small change, a flicker of hope, don't dismiss it. The shaking begins subtly before it roars. God rarely announces His movements with thunder at first. He often starts with a whisper. You are hearing that whisper now, calling you to perceive rather than panic. The unseen work of heaven is never wasted. It refines your patience, strengthens your vision, and humbles your ambition. It teaches you that miracles aren't manufactured, they're matured. You can't rush what heaven is ripening. So, keep walking with quiet confidence, even when you can't feel the wind. Know that the atmosphere is shifting. The same silence that feels heavy now will soon echo with breakthrough. Heaven has not forgotten your name. It's engraving it onto the next chapter. Heaven's hidden work may seem slow, but it is always sure. The silence that surrounds you is not an absence of movement. It is the shelter of divine order. What feels delayed is being perfected in secret. Soon, what has been forming beneath the surface will break through like dawn after endless night. You will see that every quiet day was a brick in the foundation of your miracle, built by unseen hands that never stopped working. When God begins to shake what once felt stable, it isn't to destroy, it's to awaken. The shaking exposes what's fragile so that only what's real can remain. You've started to feel that vibration deep in your spirit, the gentle quiver that says, something is about to change. It's not imagination. It's heaven preparing to move. You may not see the earthquake yet, but you can feel its pulse. Things that once fit comfortably are starting to feel tight. Relationships shift. Routines lose, meaning familiar places feel foreign. These are not signs of failure, they are signals of transformation. God shakes the ground not to bury you, but to plant you deeper into truth. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 25, the rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. Lo, the shaking is heaven's mercy. It reveals what your life is truly built upon. If your faith rests on applause, it will crumble. But if it rests on God's promise, it will stand unmoved. Storms don't destroy the strong, they reveal them. There was once a man named Jonah, not the prophet from Scripture, but a quiet soul who lived a small life. Everything around him seemed secure. His job, his plans, his future. Then, within weeks, everything shifted. His company closed, his friends drifted, and his sense of direction vanished. For months, he thought God had abandoned him. Yet in that shaking, something deeper was born. Jonah discovered that peace doesn't come from what stands around you, but from who stands within you. When he rebuilt his life, it wasn't on comfort, it was on calling. That's what the shaking does. It strips away the noise, so the true sound of heaven can finally be heard. God never shakes to harm, he shakes to heal. The walls that collapse are often the ones that kept you from growing. If you are feeling that inner trembling right now, take heart. It means you are being made ready. It means the old chapter is closing, and a new one is being written in the ink of faith. Your life is a manuscript. Heaven is editing, and every strike of his pen is done in love. In this season, let your heart stay soft. Don't resist the shaking, surrender to it. The more you fight change, the longer it hurts. But when you yield, grace flows like water through the cracks, filling every empty place with strength. And as you listen to these messages week after week, remember what we build here together isn't a performance, it's a movement. Every word spoken, every prayer whispered, every tear shed. These are bricks in a house of hope that we are building for countless others who feel lost in silence. If these words have reached you, if you've ever felt lifted when everything around you seemed to collapse, then you already understand the power of this mission. What you hear here isn't just sound, it's seed. And seeds, when planted in good soil, always multiply. That's why I ask, gently and without pressure, if your heart feels led, consider watering this seed. Think of your support as adding a single drop of oil to a lamp that lights another soul's night. Even a small drop keeps the flame alive. There is no requirement, no demand, only invitation. Some give through prayer, others through sharing, and some through contribution. Every gesture, every share, every word of encouragement becomes part of the foundation we're laying together. When you choose to give, it isn't a transaction, it's participation in what God is building through these words. If this message has stirred your spirit, take a quiet moment to like, share, and subscribe. Each click is like placing another stone in the bridge of light that carries this message further than one voice ever could. And if your spirit whispers to give, let it be out of joy, not obligation. Your donation is not a price, it's a ripple. It moves outward, unseen, touching hearts you may never meet. The shaking has already begun, but this time, it won't end in collapse. It will end in clarity. You are being anchored to what lasts forever. What falls away was never meant to stay. What remains will shine. So, keep standing. Keep believing. And know this: when you sow into what God is doing here, through prayer, sharing, or giving, you become part of heaven's echo, the sound that turns silence into song. Heaven remembers every act of love. And from that remembrance, blessings will return like waves against the shore. When the shaking begins, even the strongest foundations tremble. It's unsettling when what once felt certain starts to crack beneath your feet. The plans you trusted, the people you leaned on, the systems that once seemed unbreakable, all begin to shift. But don't be afraid. God allows the trembling not to tear you down, but to teach you what cannot be shaken. It is in this sacred instability that faith reveals its true nature. You start to realize that everything temporary will eventually shake, but the eternal never moves. Jobs come and go. Friendships change. Opportunities fade. But God remains solid, unmoved, and unchanging. The trembling is heaven's way of resetting your focus from the perishable to the permanent. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 27. The words "once more" indicate the removing of what can be shaken, that is, created things, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. That verse is not a warning, it is a promise. The shaking you feel is not random chaos, it's divine clearing. God is removing what was never meant to hold you, so that only His truth remains under your feet. What falls away was only scaffolding. What endures is the structure of purpose. Think of an old building being renovated. Before new floors can be laid, the old ones must be stripped. Before fresh paint can touch the walls, the dust must be cleared. The process is loud, messy, and uncomfortable, but it's necessary for renewal. That's what God is doing in you. He's not destroying your life, He's rebuilding it stronger. I once met a man named Caleb who had everything: stability, status, and a clear plan for his future. But in 1 year, he lost his job, his home, and his sense of direction. The foundations he trusted were gone. Yet in that season, he began to pray again, listen again, believe again, and slowly, through the shaking, a deeper peace emerged, one that no storm could touch. He said to me, "I lost everything that could be shaken, and I found the one thing that never will." Now, the trembling exposes false security. It reveals where your hope truly rests. You can't build on comfort, you must build on conviction. The cracks appearing in your old structure are not signs of failure. They are invitations to relocate your faith onto firmer ground. God often shakes what we cling to most, not because He wants us to suffer, but because He wants us free. He cannot fill hands that refuse to let go. So, when things start slipping from your grasp, don't reach for what's falling, reach for what's eternal. You might feel the loss, the confusion, the ache of watching parts of your life crumble. But look closer. The ground is not giving way beneath you, it's being renewed. New soil, stronger roots, unshakable foundations. This is what God is preparing. The truth is, every chosen one must experience a shaking. It's the only way to carry unshakable faith. It's how God ensures your heart is anchored, not to comfort, but to calling. So, if your life feels unstable right now, take courage. You are not falling apart, you are falling into alignment. Every quake is pushing you closer to the center of His will. The shaking isn't punishment, it's positioning. Even now, heaven is rebuilding what you thought was ruined. The Spirit is pouring new cement beneath your steps, the kind that no storm can crack. Soon, you'll walk across this same ground and realize it's stronger because it broke first. Let the tremor come. Don't run from it. Stand firm and whisper, I am safe even when the earth moves. Because your foundation is not made of what the world can touch, it's made of what heaven sustains. If this word stirs something deep within you, declare it with your faith. Type 880, 8 below 8. The number of new beginnings. Let it be your symbol that even as old things crumble, you believe God is building something brand new. Your comment is not a ritual, it's a prophecy. It says, I will not fear the shaking, for my life stands on the rock. The number 888 is not just a symbol, it carries the rhythm of heaven's renewal. It echoes resurrection, the endless cycle of beginnings. When you type it, you are declaring that the shaking will not end in ruin, but in rebirth. You are aligning your spirit with the God who rebuilds what breaks, the Creator who never leaves dust without purpose. Your yes invites divine construction. So, stand in peace. Let the old fall away. The tremors you feel now are the footsteps of promise approaching, carrying the blueprint of your new foundation. There is a different kind of shaking that few ever talk about, the one that happens inside you. It doesn't rumble through the streets or split the ground beneath your feet. It trembles in your chest, in your thoughts, in the hidden places where faith wrestles with fear. This is the earthquake within, and every chosen one must face it. Outward storms are easier to explain. You can point to the circumstances, to the losses, to the visible disruptions, but the inner shaking is more mysterious. It comes without warning, sudden doubts, unspoken griefs, moments where your confidence fractures. You feel the shift and realize the battle is not outside, but within. The Word of God declares in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 2, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. End quote. That verse sounds simple until it becomes real. How can you find joy when your heart trembles, when your own thoughts feel like shifting ground? Yet it is here, in the unseen struggle, that the Spirit begins His deepest work. When God shakes your inner world, He is not punishing you, He is purifying you. The tremor of conviction, the unease in your spirit, the breaking of old habits, these are not signs that you're lost. They are proof that heaven is still invested in your transformation. God shakes what has grown comfortable inside you, because comfort can harden into complacency. Think about an instrument left untouched for too long. Dust dulls its sound. The strings loosen. Its potential remains, but it cannot sing until tension returns. The shaking inside your soul is the tightening of those strings. God is restoring your resonance, preparing you to carry a new song. Sometimes the inner shaking reveals the voices that have lived too long in your head, the lies you accepted, the fears you normalized, the guilt you never released. God stirs them up, not to shame you, but to silence them. He brings them to the surface so His truth can replace their echo. Many mistake this internal unrest for distance from God, but in reality, it's the opposite. The closer He draws, the more deeply He rearranges. His nearness is not always soft. Sometimes it feels like fire. It burns away false peace to make room for true rest. I remember a woman named Selah who once shared her story. She had prayed for peace for years, but when it came, it did not look how she expected. Everything inside her started shaking: her routines, her desires, even her prayers. She thought she was falling apart, but she was really being rebuilt. The Spirit was clearing room inside her for a greater strength. When the shaking finally subsided, what remained was a faith that could no longer be intimidated by fear. That is what happens in the earthquake within. The old self begins to crumble so the new can rise. It is the spiritual equivalent of tectonic plates, shifting deep layers of your soul, realigning with divine order. It's painful, yes, but it's also holy. You may feel moments when the noise inside is overwhelming. You might sit in silence and sense your thoughts racing like waves against a cliff. When that happens, remember this: the waves do not destroy the rock, they shape it. Every collision, every surge of doubt is refining your inner landscape. Do not despise this inner trembling. It means God still trusts you with growth. He only shakes what He intends to strengthen. You are being taught to anchor your peace, not in perfect conditions, but in perfect presence. And slowly, the shaking begins to change rhythm. The chaos becomes clarity. The noise becomes a hum of quiet strength. You find yourself breathing again, lighter, freer, more rooted. The same thoughts that once stormed through you now bow to truth. That's the mystery of this inward quake. It doesn't end in destruction, but in definition. When the dust settles, you recognize the person staring back in the mirror, not the same one who trembled, but the one who learned to stand in the tremor. If the earth around you stays still but your heart still trembles, take heart. You are in the middle of holy reconstruction. God is rearranging your inner world until it reflects His stability. The earthquake within is not the end. It is the clearing before the calm, the tearing before the rebuild, the shaking before the stillness. And when the stillness finally comes, you'll recognize it not as emptiness, but as peace. What once trembled will now stand firm, glowing quietly with the strength that only surrender can create. Every breaking carries a purpose. It is never random when God allows something in you to crack open. The breaking that you fear is often the very doorway through which His power enters. You cannot be filled until you are first poured out. You cannot carry the new until the old has been shattered. The process feels violent at times. You pray for strength, but instead, everything that once held you together begins to split apart. You wonder if you did something wrong, if somehow your faith has failed. But the truth is far deeper. God only breaks what He intends to bless. The breaking is never punishment, it is preparation, as was spoken in the sacred texts of old. In the book of Hosea, chapter 6, verse 1, "Come, let us return to the Lord. He has torn us to pieces, but he will heal us. He has injured us, but he will bind up our wounds. Endville. Those words hold both wound and remedy. God never leaves the torn pieces scattered. He breaks only to rebuild. He wounds only to heal. The breaking is the moment between the old and the new, the sacred fracture where transformation begins. Think about pottery in the hands of a skilled craftsman. When a vessel cracks, he doesn't throw it away. He uses gold to seal the broken lines, creating what the Japanese call kintsugi beauty. Through brokenness, the repaired vessel becomes more valuable than before. Not despite the cracks, but because of them. That is what God is doing with you. He is filling your fractures with glory, turning what once hurt into holy design. You may not see it yet, but every scar has a story. The pain you survived is being rewritten into power. Every sleepless night, every tear that fell in silence, they were not wasted moments. They were ingredients in the refining fire. I once met a man named Nathan, who spent years building a life he thought was unbreakable. Success, family, stability. It all seemed permanent. Then came the breaking. His company collapsed. His marriage strained, and his confidence shattered. For months he felt hollow, like an empty vessel left in the sun. But one day, sitting in the quiet of surrender, he whispered, "God, if you still want me, take the pieces." That was the moment everything shifted. Slowly, grace began to fill the spaces where pride once lived. Peace replaced panic. Purpose replaced pain. He discovered that God had not abandoned him in the breaking. He had been waiting there all along, ready to rebuild from the ruins. The breaking births power because it breaks your dependence on self. It exposes the illusion of control. It brings you face to face with the truth that only in surrender do you find strength. What you thought was the end was actually the invitation to begin again, this time with heaven as your foundation. You might not realize it yet, but brokenness is God's language of intimacy. When everything falls apart, your prayers become raw, unpolished, real. You stop performing and start conversing. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start whispering, "Be with me." That's where divine closeness begins, not in perfection, but in pieces. The breaking also births empathy. Once you've been shattered and healed by grace, you carry a softness that the unbroken cannot understand. You begin to see others through the same mercy that found you. Your pain becomes a ministry. Your story becomes a bridge for someone else's healing. And here lies the divine paradox. God doesn't just rebuild what was lost. He expands it. The vessel that breaks is enlarged in the process. You become capable of carrying more compassion, more wisdom, more anointing. The breaking multiplies your capacity. So, don't curse the fracture. Honor it. Every crack is a reminder that you survived what was meant to destroy you. You are not the same person you were before the breaking, and that's the point. Heaven never wastes pain. When you look back, you will see that the very places that split you open were the ones through which light entered first. You will realize that brokenness was not your undoing, but your unveiling. You are being shaped into a vessel that can contain glory without leaking pride. Let the breaking do its work. Don't rush it. Don't hide it. God is painting gold along your cracks even now, turning what once was shattered into something sacred. The world will see the shine, but only you will know the cost of the beauty. The breaking was never meant to end you. It was meant to reveal you. Out of the fracture rises a strength you never knew existed, a beauty born only from surrender and divine reconstruction. From the rubble of breaking, something begins to rise stronger, surer, more radiant than before. It's the unveiling of your true strength. You have walked through silence, endured the shaking, and stood through the breaking. Yet here you are, still breathing, still standing. What you thought destroyed you has, in truth, revealed you. Strength is not loud, it's steady. It's the quiet conviction that even when everything trembles, you will not collapse. It's the peace that refuses to leave, even when storms howl. The world often mistakes noise for power, but heaven defines strength as stillness that does not surrender. As written in the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. That promise is not given to the untested. It is spoken to those who have already faced the breaking. Strength does not appear before the shaking it is born from it. Each trial you survived became a layer of armor. Invisible, but unshakable. You carry more resilience than you realize. Think of a tree that has stood through countless storms. Its branches may bear scars, its bark may crack, but its roots only go deeper. That's you. You no longer fear the wind because you've learned to bend without breaking. What once threatened to uproot you has taught you how to anchor. There's a beauty in your endurance that only heaven can fully appreciate. God has watched you hold your faith when logic told you to let go. He has seen you show up in worship with tears in your eyes. You may have felt unnoticed, but heaven took record of every moment. You chose persistence over panic. I once knew a woman named Ruth, not the one from Scripture, but one who carried the same spirit of endurance. Her life was marked by loss, family, finances, friendships. Yet somehow, she never lost her light. I asked her once how she managed to stay hopeful after so much pain. She smiled and said, "Because I learned that peace is not found in answers, but in trust." That sentence carried the weight of someone who had been through the fire and come out shining. Your strength is not about having control, it's about having consistency. You've been refined in silence and fortified in storms. You have become, without realizing it, a living example of endurance. The very thing that tried to break you has become the reason you cannot be broken again. And that's what heaven wanted you to see. The shaking wasn't to destroy, it was to reveal the steel inside your spirit. You carry the echo of divine resilience. You walk like someone who has seen darkness and decided to become light. If only you could see yourself through God's eyes, you would recognize the brilliance of what He's made you. Every scar shines with purpose. Every tear has watered the soil of future strength. You are not weak for trembling, you are wise for still standing. The world will soon see what heaven already knows. Your endurance is your evidence. You don't have to prove strength by force, your peace already proves it. Every time you choose faith over fear, you preach a silent sermon to the unseen world that says, "I will not quit." Emily. And now, in this moment, as your spirit steadies and your heart begins to breathe differently, mark it down in heaven's language. Type, "still standing," below. It's more than a comment, it's your declaration. It says, "I have faced the fire and found God faithful." Emily, this is your unveiling. Chosen one. The strength that once hid beneath survival has now become your mantle. You are not simply living, you are leading by example. From this point forward, the world will read your endurance as testimony. Your declaration, "Still standing," is more than a phrase. It's a spiritual seal. It tells the unseen world that the shaking did not consume you, the breaking did not erase you, and the silence did not silence you. You endured it. And in endurance, you found identity. When heaven looks upon you now, it doesn't see someone barely surviving. It sees a warrior who carries quiet fire. Your presence itself becomes prophecy. Everywhere you walk, strength walks with you. What once wounded you now whispers wisdom through you. So, walk forward without apology. You have nothing left to prove and everything left to live. Strength has settled into your spirit like sunlight after a storm, soft, steady, and unshakably alive. You are not rebuilding anymore. You are rising. When heaven confirms the chosen, it rarely happens with thunder or spectacle. Often, it begins in whispers, subtle signs that only those who have walked through silence can recognize. You begin to notice divine patterns, doors that open without effort, connections that arrive in perfect timing, peace that follows you like a shadow. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations. You once wondered if God saw you. Now, the answer comes in ways you cannot deny. That unexpected favor, that message at the exact right moment, that inner assurance that settles your heart even when circumstances remain uncertain, all of it speaks the same truth. Heaven knows your name. As written in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 1, verse 22, He anointed us, set His seal upon us, and placed His Spirit in our hearts. Asa deposit, guaranteeing what is to come. That seal is your confirmation. You are no longer merely surviving the storm, you are being sent from it. The anointing that rested quietly on your life through the breaking is now becoming visible when heaven marks you. Even the atmosphere begins to recognize your presence. You walk into rooms and peace follows. You speak and burdens lighten. The confirmation doesn't shout, it resonates. It's like watching dawn break after a long night. The light doesn't arrive all at once. It unfolds gently, revealing what the dark had hidden. In the same way, God unveils your calling, one sunrise at a time. You may not see the full horizon yet, but the glow already tells you that morning has come. Sometimes, the confirmation arrives through people who speak life when you least expect it. Other times, it comes through divine interruptions, a closed door that redirects your path, a sudden stirring that tells you, move now. The chosen never stumble by chance. Their steps are orchestrated. Your life, once marked by waiting, now begins to hum with movement. You are stepping into a rhythm written long before you were born. And as that rhythm builds, heaven begins to amplify your voice, not for applause, but for impact. There's something sacred about this moment. You are no longer hidden, yet you are still humble. You don't chase platforms, you cultivate purpose. The world sees fruit, but heaven remembers the roots. Every unseen prayer, every night you whispered through tears, has become the oil that now drips from your words and actions. And as this message continues to reach thousands across the world, I want you to know what we build together here is not entertainment, it's a collective altar of light. Every time you listen, every time you engage. You become part of a movement that reminds weary souls. God still speaks, still restores, still calls. If this space has touched you, if it has ever found you in a dark moment and reminded you that you are not forgotten, then you already understand the beauty of shared purpose. These messages exist because someone, somewhere, believed enough to help the light keep burning. That is why, with gentleness and gratitude, I invite you, if your heart feels stirred, consider being part of the flame. Think of your like and share not as routine clicks, but as ripples of light waves that carry hope to another soul, scrolling in silence. When you subscribe, you're not joining a channel, you're joining a circle of believers who believe that words can heal and truth can restore. It's like planting a lantern on a long road, so another traveler won't lose their way. And if you ever feel led to donate, see it not as giving away, but as sowing forward. Your support becomes oil for the lamp, each drop ensuring that this fire of faith never flickers out. Whether it's prayer, kindness, or contribution, every gesture keeps the message alive for those who need it most. There is no pressure, no demand, only invitation. Love cannot be forced. It must be offered freely. And when you give out of gratitude, even the smallest act becomes sacred. So, let your heart guide you. If the message resonates, if it brings peace or courage, then let your response be your worship. Like, share, subscribe, or sow not out of obligation, but as a reflection of what God has already done within you. The confirmation is clear now. You are marked, chosen, and anointed for such a time as this. Heaven has not only shaken your world, it has established your place within it. And every act of faith you take from here, no matter how small, becomes part of heaven's unfolding story through your life. There comes a point in every chosen one's journey when God begins to separate what can stay from what must go. It is not punishment, it is purification. You have reached that point now. The light within you has grown too strong to remain surrounded by everything that once felt familiar. This is the season of separation. At first, it feels like loss. People drift away. Opportunities fade, and circles that once felt like home begin to close. You look around and wonder why everything seems to thin out just as you finally start to rise. But heaven's arithmetic is not addition first, it is subtraction. Before God multiplies what's next, He removes what would have hindered it. The voice of God whispers through the book of Proverbs, chapter 13, verse 20. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. End 1. That single truth explains more than most sermons ever could. You cannot carry divine purpose while clinging to every old pattern. Some people were meant to walk with you through wilderness, not into promise. The season shifts, and so must the company. It's never easy. The human heart attaches deeply, especially to the ones who stood close during pain. Yet, sometimes God must gently move them aside because their presence would weigh you down in the next climb. You're not rejecting them, you're responding to calling. Think of Abraham leaving his homeland. The voice of God didn't ask for negotiation, only obedience. Go from your country and your kindred. It was separation by divine instruction, not emotion. Every great move of God requires a letting go. This is where the separation becomes sacred. It's not about superiority, it's about sensitivity. God isolates not to punish, but to protect. When you are alone, You can finally hear, without distortion. The noise of comparison fades, and the whisper of destiny grows clear. Many mistake isolation for abandonment, but it is often heaven's hidden classroom. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before the Red Sea ever parted. David was anointed king, but spent years in caves. Even Jesus withdrew to lonely places to pray. The silence of separation is the soil of revelation. In this season, you will find that not everyone understands your new rhythm. The conversations that once fed you now feel shallow. The things that once entertained you no longer satisfy. It is not arrogance, it's evolution. Your spirit has outgrown what your environment used to sustain. There is grief in this growth. You will miss some voices, some laughter, some comfort. But grief is not the enemy. It's the echo of transition. You are crossing from one realm of purpose into another, and the bridge between them is made of solitude. In that solitude, something holy happens. God begins to redefine your identity. You stop seeing yourself through the reflection of others' opinions. You start hearing the truth directly from the source. You begin to realize that who you were is not who you are becoming. The separation will also expose motives, both yours and others. You'll see who was attached to your heart and who was attached to your help. The shaking reveals loyalty. The separation confirms alignment. Don't resent the unveiling. When people exit quietly, they are making room for divine replacements, those who are called to build with you, not just benefit from you. There's a line that every chosen one eventually must cross. The line between belonging everywhere and being sent somewhere. You cannot walk in divine authority while seeking constant approval. Obedience often looks like loneliness before it looks like victory. Yet, within that loneliness, God whispers the kind of clarity that crowds can never provide. You start to sense that your steps are not random. You begin to understand that every door closing is protection disguised as rejection. The pruning feels painful, but the fruit that follows makes sense of every cut. So, embrace this separation. Let the distance do its work. Allow the silence to sharpen your spirit. Don't chase what left you, chase what's calling you. You are not losing people, you are gaining purpose. And soon, when the dust of this transition settles, you'll look around and see who remains. Those who stayed through the silence will be the ones who are meant to rise with you through the sound. Separation always precedes revelation, and revelation always leads to resurrection. This is your pruning season, not your punishment season. What falls away is what no longer fits the vessel you are becoming. Trust the process. You are not alone. You are being refined in holy solitude, so that when the next chapter opens, you'll carry purity instead of pain. Then comes the moment when heaven changes tempo, when what once moved slowly begins to move with breathtaking speed. It's as if the hand of God presses fast forward on your life. What you waited years for begins to unfold in days. This is the season of prophetic acceleration. It doesn't happen because you pushed harder. It happens because heaven decides, now. You've endured the stillness, the shaking, and the separation. Now, the momentum begins. You can almost feel it, the divine current pulling you into alignment. The ancient words recorded in the book of Amos, chapter 9, verse 13. Declare, the days are coming when the reaper will be overtaken by the plowman and the planter by the one treading grapes. New wine will drip from the mountains and flow from all the hills. That's acceleration harvest arriving before the planting is even finished. It's the supernatural overlap of effort and reward. You will see prayers answered while you're still speaking them. Doors will open before you finish knocking. Heaven is collapsing time for the sake of divine purpose. Acceleration always feels surreal at first. You've grown so used to delay that movement feels like disbelief. You'll catch yourself saying, "Is this really happening?" But yes, it is. The same God who seemed silent is now surrounding you with speed. The gears of destiny are turning, and you are being lifted into motion. Still, acceleration comes with instruction. Keep humility when the pace increases. Don't confuse divine favor with human control. God moves quickly, not so that you may boast, but so that others may believe. The miracles that start appearing around you are messages to the watching world. Heaven keeps promises. Think of Joseph. One day he was a prisoner, the next, a ruler. Or Ruth, gathering leftovers one morning and receiving a field by evening. When divine timing arrives, it doesn't tiptoe, it runs. Heaven doesn't need permission to accelerate. It only needs your readiness. You may notice your environment shifting to keep up. People will find you. Resources will locate you. Opportunities will seem to chase you. This is not coincidence. It's confirmation that you've stepped into divine flow. Yet even in the rush, God's peace will steady you. It's like standing in the middle of a river whose current should knock you down. Yet somehow you stay upright, carried but never lost. There's a sacred rhythm in this speed. It demands awareness. Every open door is not yours to enter. Discernment must guide your steps. Acceleration without wisdom leads to exhaustion, but acceleration with surrender leads to expansion. You don't need to run faster, you need to stay aligned. This season will remind you that what took others years can take you moments. It's not unfair, it's favor. Heaven pays back the years you thought were wasted. The seasons of stillness were not lost, they were investment. And now the return has begun. I once met a man named Darius who spent most of his life building quietly, unnoticed. He often said he felt like a seed buried too deep to ever reach light. But when his appointed time arrived, one small opportunity turned into 10 within months. What had been hidden bloomed publicly. He didn't chase the platform, it found him. That's what acceleration looks like. Effortless visibility rooted in obedience. So, if you feel wind beneath your wings again, don't resist it. This is not chaos, it's calling. The same spirit who held you still now pushes you forward. Every delay has transformed into divine momentum. You're no longer waiting, you're walking in fulfillment. Still, keep your eyes on the source. Let gratitude anchor your speed. As God moves, move with Him gracefully, humbly, joyfully. You're not being rushed, you're being released. If this message echoes in your spirit, type 555 below. It's a prophetic sign of divine motion, grace multiplied, change accelerated, destiny unfolding. Let that number be your declaration. I am ready for heaven's pace. The shaking prepared you. The silence refined you. And now, the acceleration will position you. The number 555 isn't random. It carries the rhythm of transition and divine grace multiplied. It represents the moment when God shifts you from waiting to walking, from holding back to holding on to promise. When you write it, you're not chasing numbers, you're making a statement to heaven. I trust your timing. Even when it moves faster than my plans, It's a gesture of surrender wrapped in faith. So breathe deeply. Chosen one, let acceleration carry you, not consume you. The same God who moves swiftly also knows how to steady your steps. You are no longer bracing for motion, you are flowing in divine momentum, exactly where grace has prepared you to be. Acceleration never arrives without resistance. The moment your life begins to move forward, the atmosphere around you reacts. Opposition rises, not because you're off course, but because you're finally on it. The battle of the shift is not punishment, it is proof of progress. When heaven advances a chosen one, darkness cannot stay silent. It trembles. It pushes back. It throws distraction and doubt like stones at your new momentum. You begin to face moments where faith and fear collide, both speaking loudly, both demanding to be believed. The Word of God declares in the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 12, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." And that reminder is vital. Your battle is not with people. It is not against co-workers, family, or those who misunderstand you. It's deeper, a war between light and darkness, between the old you and the new one emerging. Every time you choose peace over panic, you win. Every time you stay silent instead of retaliating, heaven takes ground. The enemy fears momentum because it threatens his illusions. He cannot stop what God started, so he tries to distract you until you stop yourself. That's why sudden confusion often appears right after breakthrough begins. It's the storm that forms to make you doubt the progress you've made. You'll notice it: unexpected conflicts, strange fatigue, a heaviness that has no reason. That's not coincidence, it's spiritual turbulence. You're rising in altitude, and pressure increases the higher you go. But you are built for it. The shaking around you is simply evidence that the heavens are being cleared for your next ascent. Think of an eagle learning to ride the wind. When the storm comes, but the eagle stretches its wings and rises higher. It doesn't fight the wind, it uses it. That's the lesson of this battle. You are not meant to run from resistance, but to ride it into revelation. Sometimes the fight isn't external at all, it's internal. Old fears resurface. Insecurities whisper, "What if you fail again?" That's when you must remember what the shaking taught you. You were never sustained by strength alone, but by grace. You can't lose what God Himself established. The battle of the shift often isolates you again. People may not understand what's happening, because spiritual warfare rarely looks logical. You might feel like you've stepped backward, but you're only being stretched. Growth always feels like pressure before it looks like progress. I remember a young woman named Leah who once told me, "Every time I get close to peace, something goes wrong." She didn't realize that something was evidence of spiritual movement. The closer she got to healing, the louder resistance grew. But when she stopped fighting in fear and started standing in faith, the battle lost its power. The moment she stopped reacting, the noise stopped winning. You are learning that same discipline now. Not every battle deserves your energy. Some storms are meant to be slept through. Like Jesus in the boat, the waves may rage, but peace is your inheritance. The calm within you will always outlast the chaos around you. This battle will refine your discernment. You'll begin to recognize what's real warfare and what's simply old wounds echoing. You'll start to see patterns, how fear disguises itself as logic, how doubt pretends to be humility. The more you see clearly, the less power the storm holds. And here's the truth: this battle won't last forever. Every conflict has an expiration date written in heaven's ink. The same God who began your acceleration has already secured your victory. You're not fighting for triumph, you're fighting from it. So, steady yourself. Let the noise fall away. The battle of the shift may roar, but it cannot rewrite your destiny. You've already crossed too many storms to doubt the captain now. When the dust settles, you'll look back and realize this war wasn't about defeat, it was about definition. It revealed what was within you all along: courage that cannot be silenced, peace that cannot be stolen, and a faith that cannot be broken. Every spiritual war teaches you to hear God in chaos. You start to recognize His voice, even through the thunder, the calm authority that says, "Peace, be still." That voice, not the storm, determines your outcome. When the final echo of battle fades, you'll realize the fight wasn't to break you, it was to brand you. Strength now lives in your silence, and confidence breathes where fear once ruled. There comes a strange calm after the battle, not the quiet of emptiness, but the peace that follows surrender. You stand in what feels like the eye of the storm, surrounded by motion, yet somehow untouched by it. It's a sacred paradox. Everything around you swirls, yet within you, stillness reigns. This is the moment where heaven teaches you how to stand in the storm, not just survive it. Many think peace means the absence of noise, but you're learning that peace is authority over it. When you finally stop demanding that the storm end, you begin to realize the power of resting in the middle of it. We find in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 4, verse 39, "He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, 'Quiet, be still.' Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm." That same voice that silenced the sea speaks now within you. God doesn't always remove the storm. Sometimes He awakens the calm that has been sleeping inside your spirit. You begin to feel a shift. The external chaos no longer dictates your inner rhythm. You move through pressure without panic, through uncertainty without fear. Standing in the storm's eye is not passive, it's powerful. It is the spiritual discipline of being unmoved while everything moves. It's the art of trusting timing without needing control. The storm no longer frightens you because you've discovered that the wind that howls around you also carries you higher. I once met a man named Samuel who lived this truth vividly. He endured loss after loss: career, home, relationships, until his life resembled a landscape after a hurricane. Yet, he radiated peace. When I asked how, he said, "I stopped asking God to take the storm away and started asking Him to make me steady inside it." That steadiness became his sanctuary. This is the transformation happening in you now. The same winds that once threatened to destroy you are now strengthening your foundation. The storm has become your teacher. It's revealing that real faith isn't found in escape, it's found in endurance. You begin to sense a deeper rhythm to all of it. The storm is not punishment but partnership. It moves in cycles: tension, release, revelation, and each wave brings hidden gifts. Some waves carry healing, others carry humility, and a few carry direction. You no longer fight them, you ride them. Standing in the storm's eye means learning to see purpose in chaos. You start to notice divine order, even in disorder. The lightning that once terrified you now illuminates what was hidden. The wind that once tossed you now clears away debris. The rain that once blurred your vision now washes your eyes. The storm does not shrink you, it shapes you. It teaches your soul to hold still, even when the world demands reaction. This is how God forges maturity, through controlled stillness in uncontrolled environments. You discover that endurance is not simply surviving, but shining steadily while you do. There will still be moments of exhaustion, moments when you want to shout at heaven, "How long?" But the difference now is that peace answers faster than panic. You begin to breathe differently. You pray less out of fear and more out of familiarity. You've learned that God doesn't only dwell in sanctuaries, He also sits in storms. When you reach this kind of calm, everything changes. Decisions become clearer. Vision becomes sharper. You stop reacting to every gust of wind and start discerning which way the Spirit is blowing. The same wind that brings storms also carries guidance. Soon you realize that the storm was never against you, it was for you. It trained you for balance, taught you humility, and revealed how deeply God trusts you with pressure. Only those anchored in peace can carry purpose through chaos. You are that anchor, now quiet, strong, centered. So stand here, in the storm's eye. Feel the air move, but let your soul stay still. The world may spin, but your faith has found its footing. You are no longer tossed by the waves. You have become the calm that commands them. The eye of the storm is not emptiness. It is evidence that you have reached the center of divine trust. Everything violent remains around you, yet peace holds its ground within you. That is spiritual authority in motion. God does not promise to calm every wave, but He promises that no wave will swallow you. His stillness becomes your stability. His word becomes your weight against the wind. So, when the next storm comes, and it will remember this moment, you have learned to stand, to see, to stay. You no longer seek escape. You carry peace wherever the wind may turn. There comes a sound after stillness, a deep, trembling resonance that feels both human and heavenly. It isn't the roar of crowds or the noise of chaos. It's the voice of God rolling like distant thunder across your horizon. Heaven's thunder is not meant to frighten you, it's meant to confirm you. When God's voice shakes the air, it carries both revelation and reassurance. You've walked through silence, storms, and shaking, and now heaven speaks not as a whisper, but as an announcement. What was once private becomes public. What was hidden in your wilderness begins to echo through valleys and cities alike. The Word of God declares in the book of Nahum, chapter 1, verse 5, "The mountains quake before Him. The hills melt away, the earth trembles at His presence. The world and all who live in it." That trembling is not destruction, it's declaration. When heaven speaks your name, the atmosphere shifts. The systems that once confined you begin to release you. The same world that watched you break will soon watch you rise. Because divine thunder always signals divine arrival. This thunder is not about noise, it's about recognition. Heaven announces to earth, "The chosen has risen. Everything you endured has prepared your frequency." Now, when you speak, it's not just your voice, it's the echo of heaven through you. Your words carry weight, not from power, but from purity. You become a vessel of sound, a living instrument, like a drum stretched tight by pressure. Your trials have tuned you for this moment. Every crack in your surface allows the sound to resonate more beautifully. Heaven doesn't need perfection, it needs resonance. And as this message reaches you, you may feel that same vibration stirring. It's heaven confirming that you are part of something far larger than yourself. The thunder that rolls over your life is not random, it's orchestration. Each rumble is a reminder. God still speaks through those who listen. Now, as this thunder moves across the hearts of those who hear, I want to speak to you from a place of gratitude. What happens here, these words? This connection is more than a broadcast. It is a meeting ground for faith. Each time you arrive here, it's as though another spark of light joins the storm. Another voice adds to the chorus of heaven's sound. If this space has ever steadied you, if the words here have helped you find peace in chaos, then you already understand what this is, a sanctuary built of sound and spirit. And like every light that shines in dark places, it stays bright, because hearts like yours choose to keep it alive. That's why I ask gently, without pressure or demand, if these words have touched you, consider helping the thunder continue. When you like or share, it's not routine, it's as if you're striking the drum again, letting its sound travel farther. When you subscribe, you become part of the storm's rhythm, a steady heartbeat that keeps the message moving through time and distance. Each subscription is like adding your note to the symphony, and when you comment, even with a few words, it's like lightning touching the earth. Your voice becomes part of the dialogue between heaven and hearts. Every thought you leave here is a spark proof that the thunder was heard, and that light has reached another soul. And if you ever feel moved to donate, think of it not as giving away, but as joining the thunder. Your contribution becomes part of the echo fuel that keeps the voice of hope rolling into the lives of those who are still standing in silence, waiting to hear that heaven has not forgotten them. Every act of support, small or great, is a sound wave in this divine storm. Together, we make the thunder roll farther, softer, deeper into hearts that need it most. There is no obligation, only invitation. The beauty of giving, sharing, and standing with this message is that it remains completely voluntary, completely sacred. The sound of heaven only grows when it's carried by willing hearts. So if this thunder has found you today, and if it stirred something real inside you, then let your response be your music. Like, share, comment, subscribe, or sow as your spirit leads. Not because you have to, but because you want to, because you believe. The sound of hope should never fade. Heaven's thunder is rolling now through you, through me, through everyone who still believes light can rise after darkness. And when we move together, the world hears something unmistakable, the sound of grace shaking the earth awake. After the thunder fades and the shaking settles, something remarkable begins to emerge, the quiet radiance of glory. It doesn't arrive with noise or spectacle, but with stillness that glows. This is the moment heaven unveils the purpose behind every pain, the beauty hidden in every bruise. You stand amid what once felt like ruins, and for the first time, you see gold in the ashes. Everything lost in the quake returns, but not as it was. It comes back refined, multiplied, transformed. The same pieces that once scattered are now arranged into a pattern you never could have planned. The restoration doesn't erase your scars, it glorifies them. The mark of the shaking becomes the seal of grace. As the writings of the Apostle Peter remind us, in his first letter, chapter 5, verse 10, the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself restore you and make you strong. That verse holds the story of your soul. You have suffered a little while, though it felt like forever. But now, restoration begins, not in grand gestures, but in small resurrections. Each new morning carries redemption. Each breath is evidence that grace is working silently, steadily. The glory after shaking is not the return of what you lost, it's the revelation of who you've become. You no longer crave the things that once defined you. The shaking stripped away false importance until only truth remained. You now carry something unbuyable: spiritual weight, eternal perspective, a peace that no storm can purchase. It's like the horizon after rain, the air clearer, the colors sharper. The same world exists, but your eyes are new. You see everything differently now. You appreciate simplicity, cherish stillness, and recognize beauty where you once saw nothing but pain. This is how glory works. It doesn't add glitter, it adds depth. I remember an elderly man named Elias who spent decades enduring disappointment. He once told me, "I thought God's reward would be to give me what I lost, but instead, He gave me understanding." That's what glory looks like. It's not always restoration of things, but revelation of truth. You may not regain what you lost, but you'll realize you gained what you truly needed. This glory is quiet but undeniable. It walks with you. It changes how you respond, how you speak, how you carry yourself. You've seen too much of God to doubt Him now. You've survived too much shaking to live afraid. Your faith no longer trembles, it stands. Glory is also contagious. People who once pitied you begin to wonder how you shine after everything. They sense something divine in your calm. You become a mirror of heaven's faithfulness. You don't need to explain it, you simply radiate it. Glory speaks louder than testimony. It is testimony. The shaking didn't steal your song, it tuned it. Now your life hums with gratitude instead of grievance. The same heart that once broke now beats in harmony with heaven's rhythm. You walk lighter, speak softer, forgive faster. That's what glory does. It doesn't make you louder, it makes you luminous. This phase also teaches you to live without fear of future tremors. Once you've seen what survives the quake, you no longer dread the shaking. You understand now that God never subtracts without intent. Whatever leaves your life carries away what cannot stay, and whatever remains becomes indestructible. Look around. The dust has settled. The path is clearer. You are no longer standing in ruins. You are standing in renewal. Everything that once felt like collapse was actually construction. God was rebuilding you from the inside out. And this is the quiet triumph heaven wanted you to experience. Not applause, not fame, but unshakable peace. Glory is not an event, it's a presence, a subtle, steady awareness that God kept every promise, even the ones you forgot to believe in. Now, you walk differently. You no longer strain to prove faith. You simply embody it. Your scars tell stories of survival. Your silence holds wisdom, and your peace carries authority. The shaking has done its work. The glory now does the rest. So stand here a moment longer. Feel it. The weight that once crushed you has turned to light. The trembling ground beneath your feet has become holy ground. This is not the end of your journey, it's the unveiling of your purpose. The shaking is over, but the shining has just begun. You are no longer the one who endured the storm, you are the one who carries its wisdom. Every echo of pain now resounds as praise. Every scar gleams as proof that grace wins. And now, the trembling ceases. The dust of every past storm begins to settle, and what once looked like ruin reveals itself as rebirth. You stand taller, quieter, and surer, not because life has become easy, but because you have become anchored. This is the moment heaven crowns endurance with purpose. You, chosen one, step into the era of fulfilled promises. The air around you feels different now, lighter, almost sacred. You can sense it in your bones. Something holy has been completed. The battles that once broke you have become the foundation beneath your feet. You no longer see the past as a graveyard, you see it as a garden. What was buried there didn't die, it grew. The Apostle Paul reminds us in his letter to the Romans, chapter 8, verse 18, I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. And that revelation is now alive within you. The glory isn't distant anymore. It breathes through your words, moves through your actions, and shines through your peace. You carry evidence that pain was never wasted, that waiting was never idle, that shaking was never random. Everything has been part of divine choreography. And now the music changes key. In this new era, you do not strive, you flow. You no longer chase signs, they follow you. The same ground that once trembled beneath you now carries your footsteps like sacred rhythm. Heaven has not just restored you, it has refined you into one who leads others through their own shaking. The crown you wear isn't made of gold or recognition, it's woven from obedience, tears, and resilience. Every yes whispered through pain became a thread in its design. You wear it quietly, not as decoration, but as declaration. I endured. I learned. I trusted. You have entered a realm of spiritual authority that cannot be faked or forced. It's the kind that only comes from those who have walked through fire and emerged without bitterness. Your voice carries a new weight, not the heaviness of burden, but the gravity of truth. When you speak, others listen, not because you demand it, but because heaven backs your words with lived testimony. This season will feel lighter because you no longer fight for identity, you live from it. You've learned that destiny is not a destination, it's a posture. It's the way you move. Forgive, love, and listen. Your presence itself becomes ministry. You will begin to notice people drawn to your calm, seeking the peace you once searched for. You won't need to preach, your life will do the speaking. The same light that once felt fragile now glows steady, illuminating paths for those still stumbling through darkness. That's what it means to be crowned after the shaking. You become a lighthouse, not just a survivor. And when challenges come again, and they will, you won't panic. You've seen too much of God to doubt his pattern. Every shaking now serves as a reminder, not a threat. You'll whisper to yourself, I've been here before, and he brought me through. That confidence isn't arrogance, it's remembrance. The crown is not the end, it's empowerment. You wear it not to rule, but to redeem. You'll walk into broken places and bring healing. You'll speak peace into chaos and watch it obey. You'll see storms differently, not as enemies, but as invitations for grace to show its strength again. And as time unfolds, you'll notice the shift within you, how easily gratitude flows, how naturally forgiveness comes, how joy no longer needs permission to exist. This is the fruit of being chosen, not perfection, but transformation. The shaking didn't make you flawless, it made you faithful. Heaven calls you a torchbearer, now one who carries the fire forward. You are not standing where you began, you are standing where destiny always intended. The world may not understand how you still shine, but that's because it didn't witness the divine hands that rebuilt you. This is the culmination of every silence, every tear, every tremor. You have walked through wilderness and come out with wings. You have endured storms and learned to speak their language. You have faced breaking and discovered beauty. Now, you walk in fullness, not striving to prove worth, but simply embodying it. Lift your head. Feel the invisible weight of that crown, not heavy, but holy. It doesn't press down, it lifts. It reminds you that you were never chosen for ease, but for impact. And though the shaking has ended, the song it awakened will echo through generations. You are the living proof that what is shaken can still stand, that what breaks can still bless, and that what ends can still begin again. The crown is not your reward, it is your reminder. You were always meant to shine here on the other side of the quake, wrapped in glory, walking steady in grace. And so, the story settles into silence, not the silence of absence, but of awe. You have walked through stillness, shaking, storm, and glory. Every word has been a step, every revelation a heartbeat, leading you here to this quiet, steady moment where heaven's work in you feels complete, yet beautifully unfinished. You have seen yourself rise from dust, break into light, and stand unshaken. But remember, this journey does not end. It continues. Every time another heart finds courage through yours, the flame that now burns within you is meant to travel, to leap from your life into the darkness of another soul, still searching for warmth. And so, I ask not out of demand, but out of shared devotion. If these words have spoken to you, let them keep speaking through you. When you like or share, imagine it as sending a spark into the wind, a single ember that may land in a heart ready to catch fire again. When you comment, it's not just text, it's testimony. Your words become ripples in the quiet, proof that someone heard, someone was moved, someone dared to hope again. Every comment is a small prayer released into the current of faith, a whisper that reminds others they're not alone in believing. When you subscribe, you choose to stay connected to the river of light that keeps flowing here. You become part of a living rhythm, faith moving, heart to heart, story to story. And if you ever feel led to donate, see it not as giving away, but as pouring oil into the flame. Every drop, every gesture keeps this light burning for the weary, the waiting, the ones still trembling in the dark. Ich gift, no matter how small, is a note of gratitude written in action, a gentle way of saying, this light has reached me, and I will help it reach another. This is not an ending, it's an offering. The message now lives in you. Carry it forward, quietly and freely, until the world feels the echo of your faith.